This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. Welcome everyone to the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host Ivan, and together we'll embark on a weekly journey connecting with extraordinary hikers from all corners of the United States and beyond. Throughout these fall months, we've had the privilege of conversing with some remarkable individuals. Their experiences and adventures will leave you yearning to hit the trails. In this week's episode, we're heading to North Carolina to talk to a West Virginia native about her hiking experiences across the United States. Her name is Rebecca, and you can follow her on Instagram at wanderlust_mermaid_travels. In this episode, we talked to Rebecca about her journey with cystic fibrosis and how hiking has helped increase her lung capacity. She also shares with us what it's like to be a camp host at a unique national forest, and a few of her memorable experiences traveling across the country. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode with our guest, Rebecca. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm really excited to be having our guest on today. She's going to be talking about her outdoor experiences, not just in North Carolina, but in West Virginia and some of her traveling adventures. Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We always like to start off by having our guests talk a little bit about themselves and how they got started hiking.
I got started hiking as a young girl, lived in the mountains of West Virginia, and there it's just where you play. I would go play in the woods there and find different rock formations. It's just where we would go and meet. We would leave little notes for one another. We'd end up meeting there. So it's just been a way of life for me. And, there's no paths. You just go wander in the woods until you're tired and come home at dark. I got my start in hiking recently. I've just started hiking really seriously for my health. I was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis as a child, and I got really sick in the winter of 2022 and got put in the ICU at Duke, and they put me on the transplant list. And my lung function was down to 18%. So I decided that I had all these bucket list places that I wanted to see, and I wanted to go ahead and get that done, get it checked off my list before I had to get a transplant. And I just started hiking a lot to try to improve my health as well, because hiking always has helped me. You're pushing yourself, your airways are opening up, and hiking has really increased my lung function. I was at 18%, and with a year of hiking, I've went up to 40%. So that's been like my big reason for hiking, was just to increase my lung function and to check off all the things I want to do before possibly, I'm not here anymore.
And Rebecca, cystic fibrosis, that's a lung condition that impacts your lungs, right?
Yeah, it impacts your lungs and just anything with a mucous membrane, any part of your body. So it's the pancreas, all of the organs that have to do with mucus, because it just causes extra thick mucus formation.
And is that something that's managed through treatment, or is a transplant the only way to be able to be cured of it?
So there is no cure. There's a new medicine that just came out a couple of years ago, and I'm on it now. It's called Trikafta, and it's really helped my lung function a lot, because I had been down before where I was on transplant and my lung function came up. But there is no cure for it. And once you get down to a certain amount, like below the 30% mark, they really want you on the list and ready, because you can't survive without your lungs. So they want you 30% below, you stay listed so that if you have one bad sickness, you're ready for your emergency transplant.
I would have never guessed, looking at your feed and seeing all the amazing places that you've been able to visit, that you were dealing with something as serious as this. But that's amazing that you went from 18% lung capacity to, did you say 40?
Yes, to 40. Yes, through hiking. And when I did Mount Rainier, so I hiked Mount Rainier, the Paradise, trail, and it was the hardest thing that I've ever done. And when I got to the top, it was so emotional because I was pushing myself so hard because the air is thinner. So somebody that doesn't have full lung function, it's even harder. I was crying through the hike and I wanting to give up, and I kept pushing myself and pushing myself. And when I finally got to the end and saw the beautiful view, I was just overwhelmed with tears because I did it. I made it.
Truly inspirational because, yeah, like I said, you haven't let it slow you down. You've seen some amazing places here in the Pacific Northwest and across the country. Now, one thing we've been asking all the guests this fall is, how did the summer hiking season treat you? And were there any memorable hikes or destinations that you got to check off the list?
Oh my gosh, there's been so many. Washington is like my biggest, I love Washington, and I've been there twice this summer. I went there and probably, Hoh Rainforest is one of my faves. Silver Falls, absolutely amazing. Mount Rainier, oh my gosh. Solduck Falls. Gosh, I've just been so many places. Olympia National Forest. It was my bucket list was Blue Lake. I wanted to go to a lake on the mountain and do an alpine, an Arctic swim. So hiked up there and got to dip in the water. It was in the 30s. And when I got in the water and came out, my skin, I couldn't even feel it, but it was amazing because it was one of my bucket list things. So that one was a really great one. But I've also, I've been to Utah, went to Bryce, Zion. We went to Antelope Canyon, just all over, Arizona. Went to the Grand Canyon. So many places this summer. I can't even list them all.
Yeah, if folks want to see where you've been, please go check out Rebecca's Instagram feed. She shows a lot of the highlights of her summer hiking season. One thing that caught my attention, Rebecca, and I'm hoping you can shed a little bit more light on it, is that you're a camp host at a national forest. Is that right?
Yes, in the Croatan National Forest.
What kind of duties or responsibilities is involved in being a camp host at a national forest?
Your day's pretty simple. You get up in the morning, print a report from rec.gov, and it shows you your incoming campers and how many open sites you'll have for the day. You go hang your tags, make sure everybody's spot's ready for them to come in, nice and clean and tidy. I check the bathrooms, make sure there's toilet paper. We have a housekeeper that does the big stuff. The lawn, you got to keep the landscaping tidy and just assist the campers, like if they want to know trails to hike or where they can get things in the area, good restaurants to eat at, just here to make their stay more pleasurable.
And how did that opportunity come about for you?
Well, it's a good story. So I went through a divorce in 2019, and I stayed in that house about 2 years, and I just decided it was too much. One of my friends was a camp host down here, and she camp hosted in a lot of places, and she told me about this area. So I sold my house. I bought an RV and a truck, and I sold all the contents, and I left and came here. After I got the job, I went and interviewed. And I've been here. I've been to 3 different campgrounds here in the Croatan National Forest. And I plan on, by spring, I'm going to head to the West Coast. I want to do some of maybe Oregon. I actually have an opportunity for the Grand Tetons. I'm really excited to head west for a while. I want to stay about 2 years. I want to just get so much of Washington that I can't stand it, or I may just end up living there. I don't know, because I just love it.
One thing I'm curious, because I'm a big fan of national forests, how would you describe the hiking and outdoor scene, not just in your national forest, but in and around your local neck of the woods?
Well, the hiking here is really, it's a lot more flat land. So it's not, like Washington, you get the challenge of mountains, or even West Virginia, but it's beautiful. The sunsets are to die for. You see a lot of wildlife. Some of my sunsets I've posted pictures of because of the texture of the water with the marshlands. It's just so gorgeous. We have an osprey nest here in this national forest that people come from all over the U.S. to photograph these osprey every year. They return to the same nest, have their babies, and then fly away. And it happens over and over every year. And people come with cameras and equipment and watch these things from hatchlings to till they leave the nest. And we see dolphins, we have dolphins right here real close. When you're walking the path, you might see dolphins, you might see otters. When we were talking the last time before, when we prepared for this, I saw a beautiful big 8-point buck walking in front because I was sitting down there by the river and I saw a big 8-point buck.
I would have thought that being on the East Coast, you guys would have more stunning sunrises than sunsets, but your sunset pictures have been just incredible. Just truly beautiful colors, textures. It's something else.
Yeah, now the sunsets are wonderful. So there's a couple on there. I think I have them labeled that it's a sunset, but there has been some really gorgeous sunrises when I've been fishing because I fish a lot. My job allows me, luckily, I have this wonderful gig here, and I'll go drive out on the beach when all the tourists go away and we have the beach to ourselves. We drive out there and we can fish. So the best time to fish is sunrise and sunset. And I have some amazing sunrise photos on there when I was fishing that I just snapped. They're very colorful.
And Rebecca, what kind of fish are you catching?
Oh, goodness. Lots of blues. Blues is, so if you ask any local, they'll know if you're a tourist or if you're a local, because if you drive up and ask what you're catching, all the locals just say, oh, a couple blues. But they catch shark, they catch puffer fish. We catch red drum, black drum, flounder, maybe an octopus or a ribbon fish or two. It's the ocean, so literally you can catch anything. But that's the most frequently caught things.
And, one place that I see that comes on your feed a little more frequently than others is this beautiful trail. I think it's called Cedar Point Tideland Trail that seems to be alongside some water features for most of the trail. Can you share a little bit about that trail and your experiences exploring it?
Oh, yes, that trail. It's my favorite in this area, that and Fort Macon, because it's on the ocean. This one's on the White Oak River. It's actually in my campground. This is a wonderful campground if anybody ever wants to visit this area and camp. It's 3 miles from the beach. But the trail here, it's about 1.6 miles, and it's a loop. It has an outside loop, too, that you can add to it, and it'll add a little more, but it's not more than 2 miles if you do both sides. And it's got bridges that go over the marsh. When the water comes up, you can actually kayak under the bridges. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's where I get a lot of my sunset photos from. I ride bikes on it sometimes. It's really fun. It's got the wood-covered trails, and you can see dolphins, the otters, cranes, just lots of wildlife. And we've also seen an eagle here, believe it or not.
Are the dolphins seasonal like whales where they come in for certain seasons, or is it year-round?
When it's warmer, they come up and come into the smaller waters. They come to feed, and we have this area here is really shallow. So it's probably about, belly button deep. And I kayak and sup all the time out here. But they come in for the feeder fish because we have a lot of feeder fish and shrimp in this shallow water because it's warmer. So they'll swim up in here. And also when they have babies, they'll swim up into the shallower water.
When does that typically, like springtime or summer?
It's summer. Yeah, when the water's really warm, they come in closer to the shore. Now, when I worked at the Croatan on the Neuse River at Flanners Beach, it's Flanners Beach Campground. Dolphins just stay there all the time. It was year round. And it's amazing. Like you could just sit on the beach. The beach is closed there now because of Hurricane Florence. But I, as a host, would go down onto the beach and paint. And I would see dolphin just swimming right in front of me while I painted. It was amazing. This place has been just amazing. It's been an amazing 2 years.
You touched base on at the beginning of the podcast, but you're born and raised in West Virginia. And I feel like West Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, that region is really an under the radar destination for outdoor experiences. Your perspective, like how was it growing in West Virginia, and what were some of your favorite outdoor memories that you can share with us as a child and as an adult?
Well, as a child, some of my favorite memories was just the whole family loading up on the back of a truck and riding on dirt roads and going berry picking. You just go out in the mountains and go berry picking, and you're walking all over the place to get blackberries, red raspberries, black raspberries. That's one of my best memories. Also camping, because we have rivers there where you can just go camp, and it ain't like how it is in more popular places. So you have just all this privacy because you're just in the middle of nowhere, and it's a whole different kind of experience because you never see another person except for your group. And, people ginseng, there, and they also hunt for molly moochers. Do you know what molly moochers are?
No, what's that?
So molly moochers is the morel mushroom. They're a delicacy, and we call them molly moochers in West Virginia. And in the spring, the first warm spell in the spring when it's wet, the molly moochers start popping up, and everybody goes and gets them, and you fry them, and they taste like chicken.
Up here, the mushroom hunters are definitely protective of their sections that they like to go hunt. Is that the same in West Virginia, where it's like a fishing hole? You don't share your
Yes.
fishing holes?
Nobody shares the honey pot spots. The honey pots, yeah, that's your little secret, stash. So you go back and get them every year.
And, one thing that we were talking about that I found really interesting, because I think when people think of petroglyphs, they think of the American Southwest in Arizona, Utah, but you were sharing that there's some petroglyphs there in West Virginia as well, right?
Yes, there are some petroglyphs. There's about 26 recorded petroglyphs, and then there's probably 2 pictographs sites that's recorded. My favorite that's kind of hard to find, and it's on private land. You can access it. There's a marker. It's just hard to find if you're not a local. It's the Salt Rock petroglyph, and it is 2 rocks. It used to be 3, and when they built the railroad, the 3rd one got covered. There's a book that was written in 1800s. It was discovered, and there was a 3rd rock with a female image on it, but there's a full body image on there, and it has one of the gorgets. Is that what it's called? The crying mask gorget, and which is linked to a certain tribe. I can't remember which one it is. It's in Salt Rock. It's only like 10 yards over the bank, and it's really cool. It's a full body figure. There's also some turkey, birds.
And you were saying that it's on private land, but the landowners are okay with folks going to visit them. It's just hard to find.
Yeah, it's on Blue Farm. So you go up the railroad track and then just go over the bank. There's a marker. You got to walk really close on a tree, and you jump over the bank 10 yards, and the 2 rocks are sitting there.
One thing that I'm starting to really find fascinating, not just about North Carolina, but that whole region, is there's a lot of different water features, whether it's waterfalls, lakes, rivers, the ocean, that are accessible through hiking or outdoor experiences. Outside of the national forest that you're a camp host in, what are some of your favorite water features that you've been able to explore and visit in that area?
In western North Carolina, where all the storms have just hit, is where most of the wonderful falls are. That is our favorites here in North Carolina. Probably one of my favorites is Linville Falls. It's a really gorgeous, big, raging fall, like the powerful ones. Also, I like Bridal Veil. It's a really pretty fall. It was raging during the storm. I saw a video of it, and it looked like something, because it's a fall that you can walk behind. So you walk under a cave and the fall falls in front of you. But it was just raging. It was unreal how heavy it was, because it's like a trickle. It's thin like a bride's veil. So that was crazy to see. You could really, people that's been there know what it looks like, really saw the surge of water that came from the mountains there. And then Sliding Rock is another one I visited in the summer. You can slide down it. So it's a very, very long rock, and it comes down with a big pool in the front of it. And it's like a big slide. And everybody goes there and swims. It's a swimming hole, and enjoys the fall and the rock, sliding on the rock. But we have tons of gorgeous falls here. That's just the 3 that, I've visited recently.
And I think one other thing, especially since we're recording this in the middle of fall, is I'm starting to hear that that region is also very spectacular when it comes to the fall colors. Have they started to change in your local area?
So in my local area, no, we don't really have seasons here, because we're just on the coast. We have very short little seasons. But the western North Carolina right now, the leaves are amazing, and it just snowed in the mountains. So I've been seeing tons. I've been inundated my IG feed with reels of the snow-capped mountains and the red and orange colors. So it's amazing. They're beautiful.
And how far away from the coast is it to see the fall colors for you?
It's about 8 hours. So it's quite a distance away.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's quite a bit. Because I was going to say, one of the things that I find fascinating about the East Coast is just the accessibility to travel and explore other states within a day or a weekend, since everything's so interconnected. With you being there for some time, what have been some of your favorite places to explore for outdoor experiences?
Well, I don't know if Virginia is considered the East Coast, but it's on the East Coast. I consider it part of the East Coast because Virginia does have a beach. But in the mountains of Virginia is the Great Channels. It's a slot canyon on the summit of the mountain. So you have to climb up this mountain. And when you get to the very top, you come out on rocks and you can see the big slices, the spaces in them, the slots. And then you go around a path and go down the other side. And when you pop up, you're in this slot canyon and it's tall. And it was amazing. I went on a rainy day. Everybody was like, well, it's going to rain. I was like, I don't care. I'm going. So when I make my trips from here to home to West Virginia, I find little things to do on my way and I'll take little side trips and go hike. And the Great Channels in Virginia, if you haven't seen it, if you have the opportunity, it was amazing. They're big. You can walk through some of them. You can get lost. It's like maybe 2 miles, 3 miles worth of rocks that you can walk through. And there's big boulders, there's slots, it's just amazing. And I've got a couple of little videos I put together of my hike just to show the highlights of it. But it was amazing. So that's one of my favorites. Also, I loved Cantwell Cliffs. Very colorful rocks. It was beautiful. Reminded me, I love it so much because it reminds me of Washington. Seven Caves, also another area that reminds me of Washington. These are in Ohio. Old Man Cave in Ohio and Hocking Hills State Park. Oh my gosh. Amazing. They're just beautiful. So green and lush. It reminds me a lot again of Washington. Do you know Hocking Hills?
Oh, it's been on my bucket list for like a year because every picture I've seen, every video, it just gets better and better to the point where it's actually number one on my list for Ohio over the national park.
Yes, I would definitely do Hocking Hills. If I only had one place to go, it would be Hocking Hills for sure. And then West Virginia, of course, my beautiful home state. There's Hawks Nest, Babcock State Park, where the grist mill is, New River Gorge and the bridge there, the gorgeous bridge that you can actually walk underneath it, where they have bridge day and parachute off and everything. And Blackwater Falls is amazing.
Talking about rock formations, that's something that I'm learning about when it comes to West Virginia and Virginia. I gotta ask, is rock climbing something that's popular there in those states?
Yes. So it sure is. In summer, they actually have rock climbing. We have Seneca Rock, which, people come from all over to climb. Seneca Rock is amazing. It's a really thin, straight up rock. But it's big enough to walk on the very main top of it. You have to be really very experienced climber to do it. They do have some guide groups that will take you on it because they have it really well marked out, and they'll take you on trips, a guided tour, and you can climb it anybody could. But you have to go on the guided tour, start climbing the rock. It's crazy steep.
And you mentioned New River Gorge, and you've been there a few times, and you've also started a quest to not just visit all the national parks in our system, but also visit all 50 states. Can you share a little bit about how both of those quests started for you and what have been some memorable visits, whether it's a state or national park?
I've traveled all my life. Since I've been 15 years old is when I've started traveling. I've traveled a lot working. I'm a travel nurse, so I've visited a lot of states doing that. And then when I was married, he worked and traveled all over the place for his job. So a lot of these states I got to knock off through work travel. I've traveled a lot in the last couple of years trying to get my bucket list stuff done before I'm too unwell to do it. So I've done a lot of traveling.
How about a state that you visited that exceeded its expectations?
I would have to say probably Utah would be that one. I thought it was just desert and, how pretty could a rock be, and it's just breathtaking. I love it. I want to go back again. I want to see more things. I want to see it all, all the things. We just can't get enough. Ain't got enough time to get it all in,
And what's your current tally for both states and national parks?
So I need 7 more states. I need to go to Alaska and then the Northeast. So, New Hampshire, Connecticut, all the North states, Maine, Rhode Island, and then the national forests. I've probably went to more than I really can remember because I've traveled through so many states and we always would go visit. But it was just at a time when it wasn't as important as it is to me now. I didn't keep up with it, like I do now.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Any ones that I visited as a teenager, I don't necessarily count It's really once I started getting into the outdoors that I took more appreciation of just, going to the visitor center, doing a short hike. It's really exploring it.
And, we're talking about rock formations like in West Virginia. If you just walk in the mountains and you go to the top of the mountain, then you can find all sorts of rock formations. They're everywhere. In front of my mother's house, for instance, lived there, she's lived there for years. There's a rock formation there. Didn't even know it was there. And I call it Kissing Rocks. And I'll have to post a picture of it, but it looks like the rocks are kissing.
Now, do you guys have designated trails to reach some of these summits, or is it more a little bit bushwhacking in order to reach some of these?
So, there are designated trails in West Virginia, but most of the ones that I'm talking about is just you have to go explore. And it's not really bushwhacking because it doesn't get like real brushy and grown like Washington does. You got a lot of greenery and it's just like trees and then leaves. Sometimes you'll have little brushy stems and stuff, but nothing you really got to bushwhack. And then you just kind of follow the deer paths. The deers will cut a path of least resistance. And so you follow the deer paths and then you go to the top of the mountain. Once you get on the ridge of the mountain, you just follow that for as far as you want to walk for miles and miles, and you'll run into the rock formations. That's how you find them, is on the top of the ridge.
One thing that I attribute to that area is the large amount of caves, whether it's public or privately owned caves. Have you been able to explore some of the caves in and around your neck of the woods?
I have. I've explored caves all my life. It's one of the fun things that we did as children. We would leave each other notes in them and meet me here tomorrow at 4, because we didn't have phones like we do now and all the technology. So, yeah, you can explore these caves, and locals there, all kinds of locals find arrowheads in these caves. And I just spoke to my uncle, just like 2 days ago, and he sent me a video of a cave that he just found. If you find a cool cave and it hasn't been disturbed in a while, you're probably going to find something if you want to dig around and play in the dirt some.
And talking about playing and digging around in the dirt, we like to do a regular segment here on the podcast where we do a deep dive into our guest's Instagram and ask them about a post or a location that captured our attention. And this one I instantly knew I had to ask you about because I just recently got my first set of Venus flytraps. They're the ones that come in the plastic tube, and I've been happy enough to say that I haven't killed either of them. During my research, I realized that they were native to the United States, native to the Carolinas, and you actually showed on your Instagram that you came across some Venus flytraps in the wild. Is that a common thing?
Absolutely not. It's not common, and I was on a mission to find them. It took me 3 weeks of hiking and driving on off-roads. I did ask the rangers here, I was like, can you just give me like a hint? Because they won't tell anybody. They're very endangered. You can be fined $15,000 if you tamper with them. They only grow in a 300-mile radius between North Carolina and South Carolina, and it's in a certain area that they grow. So once I did my research and found out where they grow, what sort of areas, I started looking like the swampy areas, and then they're under the pines and in the tall grass. So you'll have grass and moss, but it won't be like sitting water. It's got to be kind of dry. It's a very specific area where they grow, and almost had given up. So for 3 weeks, I was like, we're never going to find these things. And I was in my Jeep and I saw this big mud hole. And I was like, man, let's go over here and check out this mud hole. Looked over and there was the kind of area that it would be. So there was the tall pines with the yellow grass, mossy. Walked over to the edge of it, looked down. They were everywhere. Hiked for days and days and days trying to find these things and found them very easily. But I mean, it's not. We were deep in the woods. We drove for miles, but that's how we found them. And they're gorgeous. They're beautiful. They're very fragile. There's only one species of them. There are other carnivorous plants that grow in North Carolina, like the pitcher plant, but only one species of Venus flytrap.
I got to ask, in the wild, do they get larger or are they still kind of small plants even in the wild?
So the ones that I've seen in the store, I don't know what size yours are, but the ones I saw in the store are smaller than the wild ones. Like probably the biggest one I saw is like half the size of my palm, the actual flytrap part. I mean, they're just bunched together, so you have like a whole bunch of them and then it's all that red against the green moss and they're just so beautiful. Very different. It's very pretty and colorful.
Yeah, mine are still very green. I think once they get growing a little bit more, they'll get that reddish skin on the inside to attract the flies. It's a beautiful plant, and it's strange strange, and I don't know if it's why they're so hard to find and they're such in a concentrated area, small area. Like, they apparently don't like nutrients like other plants. Very acidic soil, no nutrients. I have to use distilled water on mine. So that's really cool that you said a 300-mile radius is where they grow?
Yep, 300 miles, both. So it's a 300-mile radius, both North Carolina and South Carolina border. And it's a very specific habitat. It has to be sandy and dry, but wet and moist because the moss will grow there. And they have to have partial sun, not full sun. So they grow under pines, lots of pine needles around them. It's just a really specific area. But now I can just spot it. Like when I'm driving through here, I'll look over and I'll see an area and I'm like, I bet there's some Venus flytraps over there.
I mean, I've learned through the research, but they kind of hibernate during the winter once it gets cold. So it's not like they grow and then they die and hopefully they spread their seeds for the next season. But as long as they're not disturbed, they kind of come back to life when things warm up, right?
Yeah, the same plants just stay right there and they don't make new shoots. They do have baby ones that come up, but the plants don't die and they just start again the next spring.
Is there a particular season where they'll be in larger quantities or more dense populations, or is it just from summer to fall until the first freeze?
I think that probably they're just the amount that they are, because they're just clustered in little places and it doesn't really get fuller or thicker any certain time. It's just that they're pretty slow growing. They don't spread like crazy. That's why they're so scarce. They don't get any bigger. Hopefully some new babies will grow. So once the adult plant is lived its life cycle, there will be more pop up around it. They're very flat to the ground, very small plant. It's just like the ones you have, just a little bit bigger because they have more, they're wild and have more nutrients.
Well, that was it, Rebecca, for the regular questions. These last three questions are questions that we like to ask all our guests. The first one is, I feel like a lot of day hikers and even some backpackers have a regular summit routine or end of the hike routine. For a lot of us, it's packing a favorite snack or drink. For others, it's a moment of zen or even the favorite meal afterwards. Is there a regular customer routine that you like to do when you reach your destination or when you make it back out?
My tradition is just looking up and being so thankful that I was able to make the hike. It's very emotional for me and overwhelming that I'm able to go these long distances and push my body absolutely to the extreme. The one video you showed, I think I'm having a heart attack, like, is literally me. It's hilarious because I really push myself physically to do these hikes. So when I make it to the end, it's just like a moment of, I did it. Take it all in.
Truly inspirational because, I can't imagine doing some of the strenuous hikes around Rainier with limited capacity. And the fact that you went from 18 to then 40, you basically doubled your lung capacity through hiking. And so truly inspirational, Rebecca, for what you're doing in the outdoors and continuing to push yourself to see these beautiful places. Now, this next question is about your pack list. And is there a luxury item that you tend to pack that falls outside of the essentials?
One thing I like to bring is my drone. You're not supposed to have your drone in a lot of places, but if there's a chance, an opportunity where I can yank mine out and get some footage, I don't always take it because it's a lot of weight for me to have to carry, especially if it's a long, strenuous hike. But my drone is definitely a luxury item that I take that's not necessary.
I'm right there with you. I don't take it on all the hikes, but it is a cumbersome thing to bring, especially if you're trying to protect it in your backpack. It takes up half the pack sometimes.
Absolutely, yes.
Now, we're at the tail end of 2024. Do you have any travel or hiking goals for the remainder of the year and for 2025?
The plan is to hook to my camper and head west. So I'm going to try to at least spend a year in the West. And I have a gig right now, hopefully lined up, if everything goes right, in the Tetons. And I'll hike all over the Tetons. I want to go to Yellowstone and get that off my list. So that's the big hikes. Once that's finished, then I'm heading further west to California, hopefully maybe the Sequoia National Forest. They have several camp spots there, host jobs. And of course, I'll be hitting Washington Washington again next year.
Well, looking forward to seeing all your adventures both on the East Coast and when you make it out west. Rebecca, that was it for the regular questions. This last section of the podcast is the this or that questions. It's going to give you 10 hiking related topics, and you just choose which one you prefer out of the two. But the first one is, do you prefer hiking in the summer or in the fall?
Definitely the fall.
And this one's a tough one, but waterfalls or summits?
Oh, that's a hard one. Probably summits, just because it's such a challenge for me and I like to push myself. So probably the summits.
Do you prefer a trail with switchbacks, or would you rather go straight up?
Probably straight up, because I'm better in the short distance than I am long haul. So I can go short distances, that's hard. So probably straight up. That's more like West Virginia. You just got to go straight up.
And then our most controversial question, trek poles or freehand?
If it's flat, freehand, but if we're going up mountains, rocky stuff, I like my poles because it keeps my hands from swelling.
Do you prefer wearing trail runners or traditional hiking boots?
So I had been wearing traditional hiking boots, and when I hiked Mount Rainier, I got terrible blisters. So now I've got runners. I went to REI, and I got me some really nice Solomons. I really like them, so I'm definitely going to stick with my runners.
And then this next one is another trail system question. Do you prefer a loop trail or an out and back trail?
I think I prefer a loop so I can see something new.
And this one's a tough one because I feel like your neck of the woods has both of them. But if you had to choose between these two trail conditions, would you choose a muddy trail or a rocky trail?
I like rocky trails. I just like climbing rock, and the difference in the territory. I'm so used to the flat, muddy stuff here that I really prefer rocky.
And then these next two are going to be the hardest ones, but sunset hikes or sunrise hikes?
Oh, gosh. Oh, goodness. I'm just going to have to say sunset. But now I love getting up in the morning for a good sunrise, too.
And then this next one, Rebecca, is spring flowers or fall colors?
Fall colors, definitely.
And then the last one is, if you had to choose between these two, would you rather do a steep climb or long distance?
I'd rather do the steep climb, get it over with.
Well, that was it for the this or that questions, Rebecca. For folks that want to follow your journey there in North Carolina and when you make it out west, where are some of the spots on social media that they can follow your journeys on?
On my Instagram is my main place that I share things. That's Wanderlust Mermaid Travels.
And we'll be sure to put it in the episode show notes so people can check it out. Rebecca, it has been a blast talking with you about your experiences there in your neck of the woods, and I'm definitely going to have to make it out there to see some of those dolphins, maybe find a wild Venus flytrap, but really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experiences with us.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you come to see the Venus flytraps, you let me know and I'll give you specific directions.
And that brings us to the end of this episode alongside Rebecca. We extend a heartfelt thanks to her for coming on the podcast. Make sure to follow her adventures on Instagram at wanderlust_mermaid_travels. Also, don't forget to check out the episode show notes to learn more. We have an incredible lineup of episodes planned throughout the fall months, and we can't wait to share them with you. New episodes will be dropping every Monday, with occasional bonus episodes on Fridays. To ensure that you never miss out on those thrilling tales, remember to hit the like and subscribe button. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to join our vibrant community on Instagram at Hikes and Mikes. We'll be sharing episode visuals, my own personal hiking content, and so much more. Let's stay connected and continue to inspire each other on this remarkable journey. As we bid farewell, remember to tread those happy trails, embrace the great outdoors, and keep the spirit of adventure alive. Until next time, my fellow explorers, happy hiking. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. Hey everyone, hope you've all been enjoying the trails this summer. I gotta be honest, leading group hikes is a blast, but capturing all the amazing memories can be a challenge. That's where our new podcast sponsor, the Cameo Journal, comes in. This thing's built for travelers and hikers by fellow adventurers. It's a pocket-sized rugged journal designed for you to collect up to 100 entries from all your trail mates, your life guests, and anyone else you meet along the way. Basically, it can be a guest book for your travels and an awesome keepsake. Logan over at the Cameo Journal is a backpacker himself and put all his love for travel into the design. So if you're looking to level up your hiking adventures, head over to thecameojournal.com to grab one not just for yourself, but for your crew too.